And today's lesson is on box and whisker plots. All of the calculations for this lesson we learned on Wednesday. Really, all we are doing today is making a box and whisker plot using those 5 values, and it's really easy. All right, as long as you know how to make a number line that is appropriately labeled, and you know how to put 5 dots in the right spot, 3 lines through the middle 3 dots, and like attach your whiskers, that's pretty much it. And then reading a box and whisker plot to solve real world problems. So I'm recording right now. I also linked another video that I found on YouTube. There's some videos out there if you want to check them out, see someone else explain it. The practice I actually gave out on Wednesday. If you were here, if you need it, just remind me later and I'll give it to you. If you need any papers, remind me later and I'll give it to you. They always are posted on Schoology anyway. So, you know, when you come in and tell me, oh, I've been gone for like a week, honestly, unless it's still on the board, I don't remember what you did each individual day. Just tell me what lessons you missed. They're all in Schoology day by day. All right, and then I'll give you what you need. The exit ticket for this probably won't be until Monday. So Monday is when you'll do your exit ticket on this, and I'll check your practice that day too. Today I will be checking your 9-2 practice, but I'll check it more toward the end, maybe around like 9:15-ish. So that way we will have a good chunk of time later. That way, if you didn't finish it, maybe you were absent or whatever it may be, that way you can finish it. And then the 9-3 I'm checking on Monday anyway. But before we get into the note sheet real quick, I have graded almost all of my classes for their topic 8 tests. I'm hoping to get those grades in as soon as possible. I should be able to during my prep hour, which is 6 hours, but I haven't. So I love that. Trying to get them in as soon as possible. There is tutoring today and Friday, so consider coming, even if you don't know what the score is. You know what your score is for the first attempt, because that's in Galileo. But just consider coming anyway. Look out for it in Infinite Campus today. Usually I'll put in the retake score first, because that's usually the higher of the 2 scores. And then I'll go back and adjust it, because some people do better on the first attempt. So you might see 2 different scores go in. The second score is like your final score. But just kind of prepare yourself. It was a harder test. It's the hardest test you take of the whole year. And unless you studied, then you did not do great on it. Some people just made silly mistakes that I literally always tell you, like to put parentheses anytime you plug stuff in. So many like silly math mistakes, and I don't know why. It gets music hungry. All right, but you know, it is what it is. I'm gonna put in the grades. Hopefully that binder check that you all should be getting 100% on, unless you just throw away all your note sheets or lose them. Hopefully that will be like your saving grace. So that's like 20 assessment points. The topic test is 52 assessment points. So far, the highest grade I've had so far on it is a 48 out of 52. So, you know, if you're thinking about like it being curved, well, since someone scored a 48 out of 52, it would be curved by like 4 points. And of course, someone can also score higher, and then the curve will be even less. So just keep that in mind. If you are wanting to retake, you need to come either today after school or next week after school, and that's it. There's a reason I tell you the retake days in advance, so that way you don't necessarily have to come after school. But some kids are kind of just driving me crazy, like with their lack of effort and all this stuff. So I'm not gonna like bend over backwards for them. All right, just know those are my 2 dates that I'll be here, and then that's it. Questions? All right, so now onto the note sheet. For making the box plots, you need 5 values. the first value that you will need wake up. Okay, there we go. The first value that you will need is the minimum. Then your lower quartile. Your median. Your upper quartile. And your maximum. All right, those 5 values you should be able to clearly see on your box and whisker plots. Those are the ones that get the dots. So your minimum, and then for short, we usually say Q1, Q2, Q3, and then your maximum. All right, so down here's a little picture of a box and whisker plot labeled with all of the different parts. They're really nice ways to represent data because you can see how the data is distributed. Like this one, it looks like it's evenly distributed, right? Like we have a box in the center, it looks like the median is right in the middle, and the minimum and maximum are like evenly spread out. Where the box is where most of the data lies, right? So here's like my typical data points here where the box is. From the box, you can also calculate your IQR, because what's the formula for IQR? That would be range. What about? Good. So your Q3 minus your Q1. All right. So all these things you can tell, even your range too, you could tell. What's the formula for range? Good. So all of these things you can tell from looking at a box and whisker plot. If the box is big, like it's pretty close to the minimum and maximum, well then you can see that like there's a lot of variability in that data. A lot of the data points are spread out from each other. If it's small, then you can see that there's less variability and things like that. So you can compare box and whisker plots to see like, you know, I don't know, what class period did the best on their test, or what company should we hire based on their data, things like that. So down here, first example, we have the number of runs scored by a softball team in 20 games are given. And first thing you need to do most of the time, or like anytime you're calculating median, things like that, is put the data in order from least to greatest, which is already done for you because that's not a very hard task to do. But just make sure, like if I started with 20 data points, I should have 20 in my list. So like on your exit ticket yesterday, I always do the problems myself. Both times I missed one of the data points, and then I had to go back and see where it should have gone. What number did I miss? So always take that time to double check. All right, but you order it from least to greatest, and then you identify your 5 needed values. What's one of the values that I need? What's my minimum? 2. Good, so I'll like circle it, I'll even label it, that's my minimum. What else? The maximum, what's my maximum? All right, what else? Good, so probably you need to find your median first before you find your Q1 and Q3. So you need to find the middle of your data. So usually I'll underline so I can still see the numbers. but it just goes left, right, until you get a middle number, or in this case, since we have an even number of data points, I should have a middle two numbers. What happens when you have a middle two numbers? You take the average of them. All right, so my two middle numbers are 7 and 8. So take the average of them. I'll do it off to the side, or maybe down here. So average means that you add the numbers together and divide them by however many you added. So what do I divide by?
2.
And what's my average then for this?
7.5.
Good. Because you get 7 plus 8, which is 15, divided by 2, 7.5. So that's my Q2. Question so far? All right, what else do I need? Good, so we can start with the lower. Remember that if you basically don't cross out your median. All right, my median is the 7.5. It's what this line is right here. So when I'm doing my crossing out, it'll look something like this. Left, right. This time I have two numbers in the middle, and they happen to be the same number. What does that mean for my average then? What's the average of 4 and 4? Upload. 4. All right, even without doing the math, I can know that because average is basically saying like what's the typical score or what's the typical value. Well, if I'm only averaging like the same exact number together, it should be the same number. All right, but just in case, if you want to see it, add them together, divide them by 2. What's 4 plus 4? What's 8 divided by 2? So that's what we get. Take like 10 seconds. What's the upper quartile? All right, so what is it? Good. You have 2 10s in the middle of your upper half, which means that when you take the average of them, it should be 10. The same exact number, that should be your average. All right, so here are all of my values that I needed. Now that I have them, I need to plot them on a number line. The number line is given to you this time. It will not always be given to you. So you would need to know that, well, if these are my 5 needed values, the 2, 4, 7.5, 10, and 14. If these are my 5 needed values, well, I'm going to need some numbers before my smallest number and after my biggest number. All right, and how you number it is up to you, but you don't want to do something that's like, how do I want to say this? You don't want to do something that's unnecessary. Like in this one, it's not necessary. It's not necessary to count by 5s. Like that wouldn't really be a nice looking one. You can count by 1s, and this one they counted by 2s. So pick scales that are appropriate and that are consistent. So if you start counting by 2s, don't start counting by 1s. Label the tick marks appropriately. All right, and then put dots where each of these values are. So I need a dot over the 2, over the 4, over the 7.5, which would be like about here, over the 10, and over the 14. Which dots get vertical lines through them?
7.5. Yeah.
4, 7.5, 10.
Good. Or in other words, it's always the 3 middle dots. All right, they get the vertical lines, they make up the box. And then, you know, finish making your box. And then connect your whiskers. So from your box, you make a line to your minimum and your maximum. All right, and then that's about it. Any questions? All right, sometimes you can choose to label them, like you could say, this is my minimum, this is my maximum, which is 14. Like sometimes they're nice and label them exact values for you. Usually you have to like look off the number line. All right, ready to make your own questions? All right, so then you try this one. We'll probably do step 3 together just to make sure you get step 1 and 2 right first. But I'll give you about 2 minutes to do step 1 and 2. First, I'm just gonna reorder the values. Let me know if I miss any, or if you're not sure why your list is different than mine. All right, how many values did we start with? 16. So in my list, I should have 16. And I do, right? Did I miss any? Okay, so the first step probably seems like, you know, not a big deal, but if you mess up the first step, you mess up everything else. So make sure it's always in order from least to greatest. Next, identify your 5 needed values. They're on the front of your notes if you forget. So you get to use your notes on the first day of the test, not for your retake. So make sure if you are banking on your retake being much better that you memorize those 5 values. So what's one of the values that I need? Which is good. When it's in order, it's easy to see. What else? Good. All right, what else? All right, good. That's probably how you'll always identify them in that order. Since I have 16 data points, I should have 2 numbers in the middle. What happens when you have 2 numbers in the middle? You take the average of the 2. When they happen to be the same exact number, do I really need to like do all the math for it? What's my average going to be? Good. All right, but if you want to see it, here it is. You add the numbers together and divide by however many you add. So 28 divided by 2 is 14. All right, now your upper and lower quartiles. The process to find them should look something like this. When you have 2 numbers in the middle, you'll end up crossing those numbers out. 2 numbers in the middle again. What's my average between 13 and 13? 13. Good. That's my Q1. What about over here? What's my Q3? 18. Because I have 2 18s in the middle. Average of 18 and 18 is 18. Questions? All right. So those can be different. Like if these were different numbers, you know, take the average of them. Might be a decimal, that's fine. All right, but now that I have those numbers that I need to make a number line. This paper already has one printed for you. Notice, so let me recopy my needed values over here. All right, but notice, does the number line start before my minimum? Yes, it starts at 10. That's good. Does it have numbers after my maximum? Yes, it ends at 25. So that's good. It doesn't need to be unnecessarily huge. Like I don't necessarily need a scale from like 0 to 100. All right, this is a good number line to have. And they labeled it, or they have like it numbered by ones, but they only labeled like every 5. That's perfectly fine. So then put dots over these 5 needed values. So 11 would be here, 13 would be here, 14 here, 18 over here, and then 23. Which dots get lines through them? The middle 3, that makes up your box. Notice the median is a lot closer to like the Q1 and the minimum. Once you make your box, connect your whiskers, and then that's it. Questions? All right, so you can see like the distribution of the data. You can see that because the median is closer to like this part of the data, you can see that most of the data points lie in this region. If you look up at like what our data points were, isn't that true? Yeah, they're more spread out when you get to like the last half of the data. So that's a good way to see like maybe there's potential outliers, not necessarily all the time, but like you can see like this might be an outlier if it's way over here and things like that. So questions. All right, so that's enough making box plots. I think that's pretty straightforward. A lot of the times on a test, you'll be given some box plots and asked questions about it. Like usually more so like which company would be best to use if I want a lot of variability or not as much, things like that. In this one, it just wants you to label some values, and this box plot is nice because it even labels the dots for you. So for this example, it wants my lowest value. What's my lowest value on this? 14. So lowest value is another name for your minimum. Your minimum is always your first dot. What's my highest value? 29, good. Always your last dot. Not the last thing on your number line, your last dot. Next, it wants the IQR. What's the formula for IQR? What is my Q3 in this? Good. And then what's my Q1? So your Q3 is always like the right edge of your box. Q1 is always the left of edge of your box. So then subtract that. What's 24 minus 15? 9 is correct. All right, next, the range. We haven't found the range yet today. What's the formula for that? Good. So what's my maximum? What's my minimum? What's 29 minus 14? 15. Good. Lastly, it wants to know the median. What is my median? 16. So I'll use that middle dot. Your Q2. Any questions? All right. Real quick, they have like some your turns like dispersed in this. I kind of want to show something first before the your turn. All right. So we're not necessarily going to go through page 3. If you want to copy it from online, feel free. But it's just making another box plot. Like here's what you do. Find your 5 needed values, plot them on a line. This time, where is the data mostly distributed? In like the upper half or the lower half? Upper half. Because my median is here, your median is like your central data, like a typical data value. And since it's closer to like the Q3, then it's more distributed up here. These are more spread out on the left side. All right, so that's just like another example if you want to see that. Over here is one of those good like comparison ones that you might see. So it might give you like 2 box plots, maybe they're even on the same number line, and it might say like which one has more variability. What would you say has more variability? 2013 is correct. Because the bigger the box, the more spread out the data points are. The smaller the box, the less spread out they are. Clearly you can see like this one might be an outlier, right? Sometimes there is outliers, but for the most part, their data is mostly close together. It's mostly consistent, if that makes sense. So I don't remember what this problem's about. But let's say it's about like 2 different companies. You want a more consistent company to do some work for you. Well, then the better one to hire would be this one. All right, I know that's not what this specific problem is about, but that's usually what you see on the test. All right, now what I'm gonna have you do is the your turn, which is on the back of page 4. This one. So try that one. We'll go over it in about 2 to 3 minutes. And then you're working on any of the practices from this week. The 9-2 practice is the one I'm checking today. But the 9-3 practice is the one you just learned. So about a few minutes. So given the box and whisker plot, identify the following. Let's start with the lowest value. What's the lowest value on this data? 9. And again, this one was nice and labeled the data points for you. Otherwise, just read the number line. All right, but good. Lowest value is 9. What is the highest value? 19. Good. So not the 20, the 19. Don't look at the number line, look at your box plot. The IQR, what's the formula for IQR? Q3 minus Q1. What is my Q3 in this one? 13.5. What is my Q1? 10.5. And what's the difference between them? 3. All right, should always be a positive number. It's your upper quartile minus your lower one. So it's Q3 minus your Q1. Question so far? All right, let's talk about the range. What's the formula for that? Good. What is my maximum? $19. What's my minimum? So my range is 10. Data has a range of 10. It goes from 9 to 19. Lastly, the median. What is my median? 12. So my median is my Q2. I don't know where else to write this. I'll write it over here. Median equals 12. All right, I'll use your middle dot. Would you say that this data is distributed evenly, unevenly for the most part? What do you think? How would you describe like the distribution of this data? pretty evenly distributed. It's clear like this 19, kind of stretches it out, the maximum value stretches it out. But in a perfect world, if we wanted it to be like evenly distributed, the last stop might be like over here. But not everything's perfect, right? So sometimes things are way higher than what you think. But for the most part, like looking at this box, these lines are pretty evenly distributed. It's not leaning toward one side more, and things like that. So any questions? All right, then that gives you like 20-ish minutes to work on any of the practices from this week, but the one I'm checking today is the 9-2. In a little bit, I'll be calling people to do some missing or incomplete binder checks. To really be using your binder checks as like your saving grace for this test that we just did.